All right. So some of you heard a couple of the people leaving, saying they still loved me, even though I took them into the splits in the last class. I'm not going to work you guys that hard because this is gentle. But we were doing splits all kinds of different ways, upside down, regular way, just anyway. I do want to build us up to a half split, and I would like to build us up to the standing split where both feet are on the floor. I remember the last time you were with me and we were doing the standing split, that really upset your back, and I just don't think that's gentle. So we're going to leave that out of this practice. The reason why I wanted to do the splits is really because of conversations that have come up and things that even I have personally felt and experienced. And it just seemed like a theme for the last 3 or 4 days. And so I just knew this was going to be the subject matter for today. Usually when I lead us into a form of the splits, I like to talk about Hanuman because the pose is called Hanumanasana. And there's a lot of stories about Hanuman and superpowers, and there's all these like cool messages and morals within the story. And I don't want to go that direction today because of the conversations that I've had. And basically the conversations that I've had with people is about the split, the divide, the polarity that's been going on so much in the last couple years, and all the change that has not only occurred but continues to occur. And we are just in this cycle right now. There have been people calling the 2020s like the 1920s, like it's a different type of roaring 20s. And a lot of people have felt these splits, these divides. And we've talked about this before, but I think it needs to be talked about some more. So we've seen splits in families. We've seen splits with friendships. We've seen splits in communities. We've seen splits with businesses. We've seen splits in our government. We're seeing splits in the world. And sometimes we're even having to make a split decision about something. And you may be at a crossroads, or you may be at a fork in the road, and you're trying to navigate your way through all these changes and all these disruptions and more truths getting exposed. And there's just so much that I want you to think about where you have felt split, where have you felt a divide, and then remember that this practice is yoga, and yoga means to come together, and yoga means to unify. So I've been going down a rabbit hole in the spiritual world since 2020. I have followed a lot of psychics and mediums and astrologers and people who channel. And I've listened to all of these spiritual people talk about what is happening with the age of Aquarius and moving into this evolution that's happening on the planet, and this evolution that's happening with humankind. And they have their own kind of ideas about where we're going and how it looks. And it gets really, really woo-woo. So I don't want to take you down that rabbit hole, other than to say there's the old earth and then we're moving into the new earth. And so there's all these ideas about what that's going to look like and what it's going to be like. Some people are thinking there's going to be an actual split, right? An actual split where the dense part of the planet and people wanting to stay in third dimensional reality that don't want to change or evolve will just stay as they are, and the people who ascend and move on to this next dimension where it's more telepathic and it's less physical, less dense material, that it will actually like kind of separate out. And what's weird about that, I actually had a dream at the beginning of the pandemic about another earth colliding with our earth. And I found out through my dream research that a lot of other people at the beginning of 2020 were having similar dreams. So there is this divide, there is a split occurring, but one of the conversations I had over the weekend was with a dear friend of mine who has these abilities. She's like, you know what? What if we're What if we've been thinking, yeah, the split is occurring, but actually the split has already happened, And now we're starting to see it kind of come back together. I don't have facts to give you about that, but I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. That's a whole other take on it. So if you're following any of that information, we don't know what kind of split that's going to create. And it could be just a split in our own state of consciousness, where we finally let go of all the conditioning and all the negativity and all the darkness, and boom, we're in this enlightenment in better state. Last week when we were going with the full moon, I mentioned that the full moon and the planetary alignments that were occurring were bringing up some of the things that were also happening in January 2020. Well, think about what's happening now with all the trials going on and sort of the insurrection, right? All of that's playing out right now planetarily as it should be, even though it's 2 years later. And so even though things are really messy and things look like they're completely falling apart, it is a nice idea and it is a hopeful idea to think, oh, well, even though it's really messy, everything is really forming and coming together in the undercurrents. And maybe we just can't see it yet. So it's just kind of trust. It's that whole idea of trust and surrender, trust into surrender. God's got us, trust and surrender. We've got this, trust and surrender. The planet's got this, And then I'll share one more story and then we'll get into the practice. There were other conversations that happened, but this is like a lighthearted article that I read because I don't like watching the news anymore for obvious reasons. And when I go into my email, I see the Yahoo News and I see the clickbait headlines, and half the time I'm just like, oh my God, they're just trying to clickbait, But there was this one, it was talking about a man and his dog. So some of you may have read this. I was like, oh, it's about a dog. I want to read that one. And it was about this gentleman who was single, who needed a companion, and he went to the local shelter and he decided he was going to adopt a dog. Man's best friend, after all. And he chose a black lab. And anybody that's a dog lover, that's one of the cream of the crops. Like, it's just a great dog. It's a great companion. It's very loyal. It's extremely smart, right? And so he got this dog expecting to bond with this dog, brought the dog home, and the dog was still so sad. In fact, he shared all these photographs of the dog in his home, and he looked depressed. He had bought the dog, all the stuff, the food, the bowls, the toys, and he couldn't connect with his dog. And after weeks and weeks of working with this dog and seeing how depressed it was feeling that split, that divide within himself of, well, I thought this was going to be good for both of us, but neither one of us are happy with the situation. I'm going to have to take it back to the shelter. And so he started to gather up the dog's belongings. And he realized when he gathered up the paperwork, that comes with the adoption, there was an envelope that he had failed to open. And the envelope was a handwritten letter from the original owner. He opens up the letter. Now, this whole time, he's been calling this dog Reggie, because that's what they said the dog's name was. And he starts reading this letter, and he's like, whoever's reading this letter, I know you've adopted my dog, because this was only supposed to go to the new owner. And the first thing I want you to know, the dog's name is not Reggie. The dog's name is Tank. And I'm a military officer. And I've really bonded with this dog. I took this dog everywhere with me. Please take him in car rides. He loves tennis balls, and he'll hoard all the tennis balls. And he goes on and on about the personality of the dog, the true name of the dog, all the commands that he's trained the dog with, vocal and hand gestures. So you could tell this dog was so loved, and the shelter knew none of this. And so he's reading this, and he looks at the dog, and the dog's over there depressed, and he says, Tank. And Tank picks up his head, and his ears perk up, and his eyes light up, and he comes running over. He never came for Reggie. He came running over because he heard his name Tank, and there was the beginning of the bond that was created between the new owner and this new dog. So even in that situation, he felt the split, like, I want this dog, I wanted this to be a good situation, it's not a good situation, I'm gonna have to take him back. And it took him deciding that in order to remember to look at the paperwork to find the letter for it all to change around. So just as a reminder, when we drop into our bodies, when we drop into our heart center, the heart center is the true intuitive center. The head can give us all kinds of doubting, all kinds of, well, maybe this, maybe that, pros and cons. You know, whenever we're making a decision, are you the kind of person like me, you write it all down and you're comparing the list? And sometimes you just can't compare the list. Sometimes you have to go with your intuition. It takes quieter moments to move all that out of your head, to be able to drop into your heart to get a clear, decisive answer. So that's what I want you to try to do today as we explore the body and work into a half split. So let's start on our backs. And we're going to take the feet out to the corners of the mat. And then I want you, once you roll down to your back and spread out your feet, I want you to flex your ankles, push out through your heels so that your feet actually levitate away from the floor. And as you're pushing out through the heels of the feet, feel that activation in your quads and knees. And now lay the feet back down. Let the toes roll away from your midline. And place your hands to rest on your abdomen. When you close your eyes, just take a moment to feel the earth beneath you. Feel the texture of your mat. Where your weight is settling down. Let your muscles soften and your bones be heavy. Breathe in the air that's circling over your face and hovering over your body. The breath is our connection to what is etheric. It's our connection to the cosmos. So feel the support from above and below. Feel the movement of your belly beneath your hands as you improve the quality of your breath. Slowing down the breath, creating a smooth, rhythmic pace. Improving the quality of the breath and the state of mindfulness that's involved can help to subdue and calm the mind. Take 3 more breaths. And then you're going to travel the feet closer together. And your arms are going to slip down to the floor beside you, palms facing down, and reach the arms down towards the top end of your mat where your feet are placed, so that your shoulders kind of crank down away from your ears. Now we're going to do a single leg lift. So point your right toes and slowly sail the right leg skyward. At the top where you feel the edge of your flexibility with your hamstrings, flex through the ankle and lead with your heel to lower. Feel free to hover to activate and strengthen the lower part of the abdomen. Point your toes, inhale, fly the leg skyward, flex through the ankle and lower down with the heel. You're going to do this 3 more times as you breathe. So remember, it's not a kick. It's a controlled mechanic. The lower abdominals and the hip flexors, the quads and the hamstrings at work. After your final one, you can lower the right foot down to the ground. But then just pause for a moment, relaxing the feet, closing the eyes, and notice how much longer the right leg feels. Okay. Hopefully I'm not the only one experiencing that. Now point your left foot, sail the leg skyward. Stop at that edge, so there's no force. Flex the ankle and lead with the back side of the leg and the heel to slowly drop it down. So just as we're controlling the breath, we're controlling the mechanics of the body. Because we want to practice with compassionate action. Basically, that's another way of bringing in a Hamstring. Since we're going to be doing some deep stretching today, remember we don't want to tear or shred the muscles. Once you lower the left foot back to the floor, you're going to separate your feet out again, like earlier. And your arms are going to circle overhead like a Y shape. So with your arms overhead and your legs sprawled out, your body's really creating actually an X shape. Now, as you inhale, lift your right arm, left leg skyward. Don't worry if they touch or not. Stop a point. And then exhale, recline back down. And then alternate the limbs. Right leg, left arm next. And then exhale, release. So this is the gentle way of doing it, where the head stays on the floor. If you wanted to lift the head up and work the side obliques, you can lift the head up and do that twist across towards that top foot. We're going to end with the right leg, left arm, and then lower it back down. Now slide your left foot over to join your right, and then take the left arm up closer to the left ear, and then swerve the upper body to the right. So you're making a crescent moon shape. This is actually a yin pose called banana asana. Try to keep both heels touching down, both sides of your seat touching down, and both shoulder blades nestled down. Then try to exaggerate the breath a little bit. Increasing that intake of oxygen, especially into the left lung. Feel that swelling on the left side of your body. Softening the jaw, your face. On your next in-breath, let's slide the left limbs over and roll the head to center. And just pause here for a moment and feel that surge of energy that you've awakened in your left side body. Now slide your right foot over to join your left. Slide your right arm up closer to the face and then curve the upper body to the left as well. And when you make that shape, stay grounded on your backside. Feel that swelling on the front side. The swelling in the belly, your waist, your ribs, your right lung. All right, on your next in breath, let's open back into that X shape. And now slide the feet closer together. As you exhale, bring your arms around in front and you bring your right knee in and hug it in towards your chest line. Inhale, separate the arms overhead, extend your right leg out, swap sides, and now take a hold of your left knee. Inhale, extend. And once you open up, exhale, close the right knee into the heart. Extending the body, then exhale, hugging the left knee towards the heart. Let's do a couple more to each side. So started on the right, let's end on the left. And once you have that left knee drawn in, draw both knees together, Uttanasana, and affirm it here to hold. I reduce my scattered forces to rise up and away into the sky. Lots of times it's all that inner chatter or the restless nature of the mind that gets so scattered and confused. And it's hard for us to determine which direction or choice to make. Let's go ahead and roll over to the right side, push down from the left palm to come up. And as you come up, we're going to go ahead and set up the blankets under the knees. Just for a little extra pad. If you have a knee pad, you can use that as well. And I would suggest getting the blocks in too. So we're going to have the blanket set up underneath the knees and the blocks set up underneath the hands. And when you're ready, we're going to step the left foot forward. Once you step it through and lunge into that knee, make sure it doesn't track way past your ankle. It's okay if it goes a little past, but nothing extreme. And then what we're doing is we're sinking down to the pelvic floor. We are driving the hips lower because we're trying to stretch out the back quad muscles, the iliopsoas. And then we're going to rock back and forth. So you're going to flex the left foot, elevating the toes, and you're going to straighten out that front leg. And then we're just going to rock back and forth between the half lunge. And this is a half split here. Continue that. Every time I do this rocking motion, I think about Gretchen, who used to be a part of our community. She moved back up north, but she'd always say, "Motion is my lotion." All right, now let's stay in the half lunge. And what we're going to do, well, it's a couple things. You can stay on the taller blocks and maybe rest your elbows here. You may not need blocks at all and maybe want to drape and just rest your shoulder onto the knee and let your head kind of dump over towards the shin. You don't have to have weight in your hands. In fact, you can flip them upside down so your elbows can bend. If the intensity builds, or if you find that your breath is getting caught, trapped, or restrained, please know that you can go back into that rocking motion. Just a couple more breaths. Then we're going to take a hold of the blocks. If You let them go. And you're gonna flip the foot again, residing on the left heel. Now, your blocks can turn different heights, so use whatever you need to, but we're extending out the spine, shining the heart forward. And then it's okay to explore whether or not you can break down. Remember hamstrings, if they are taken to the point where they're pulled or strained or torn, it's a very hard injury to recover from. Luckily, I've never experienced that, but I have known people that have experienced that. So this is why we don't want to shred the muscles. We want to practice compassion and action. Feel free to affirm mentally within. I choose to dwell within infinite possibilities. I choose to dwell within infinite possibilities. Now let's go ahead and roll back to the sole of the left foot. This is where you're most likely going to want to turn the blocks to their tallest height. Curl the back toes and pluck up that back knee. All right, from here, we're going to accelerate down through the left foot so that we're straightening out the front leg. You may have to come to fingertips and be off of flat palms if you need to bring the torso up higher. But what I want you to focus on now is drop your head enough to look at your back foot. Make sure the toes are facing you. And if they're not, if they're turned to the side, notice if the right hip feels a little airy. Turn the toes to face you and notice how that will rotate your right thigh and hip around. And when your right hip starts to turn and your sacrum becomes more symmetric, level, and even, you're going to find it actually fires up the front leg more. Good. Exhale, lunge the knee. Lift the head up, look out with your eyes. And now we're going to rock back and forth between these two poses. Inhale. This is a standing form of Hanumanasana. And then exhale, lunge the knee. Just do that a couple more rounds. Next time you straighten out the front leg, now you can explore folding over, maybe diving down a little deeper. Choose to dwell with infinite possibilities. Now let's lunge the front knee again. Slowly float the hands up. And you're going to slowly lift the arms up overhead to what we call crescent lunge. Now from crescent lunge, find a place in front of you to fixate your eyes because you're going to need it for balance. Your hands come down towards your heart and you lower the back knee but not to the floor. And then inhale, you're lifting it up, arms split, and then exhale, lunge that back knee. Good, inhale, one more. Now bring the hands down, set the back knee to the floor, and this time you're going to pick up the foot and point the toes. Don't take it to the point where it cramps, okay? Just hover. Good, to send your right foot back down to the floor, and you can step the left knee back. Good, now we'll step the right foot forward. And when you start to sink the hips, check in with that alignment, chin fairly perpendicular to the floor. Just dropping through your back thigh. All right, now we'll take the half splits for the right toes lift and spread open. Hips stay level. Now that you know what these two poses are, we're going to go back and forth. Just rocking into the half lunge, rocking back into the half split. So since there's been so much change, just remember the hips correlate back to the element of water. And one of the spiritual lessons of an aligned or open second chakra is to be able to navigate and be adaptable with change. All right, now let's hold the half lunge. And since we're going to hold it, you may need to stay taller. You might want to rest the elbows on the blocks here. You may want to lose the blocks and just spill over your front knee and bow the head more. We're mixing in a few yin postures today with our flow. Nice, even rhythmic breaths. And we'll use the blocks to press back into the half split. This time you can hold it a little longer and maybe fold a little lower. Let go of expectations, let go of any competitive nature, let go of the ego being in the driver's seat. Engage compassion and action. I keep getting annoyed on social media because there's this, probably shouldn't be saying this when I'm recording it, but I am anyway. I've already started. But I keep getting this advertisement about yoga shred. And I'm like, why is this popping up on my feed? I don't want to have anything to do with yoga shred. That's just against all yogic philosophy. I'll tell you later. It's like, no, those two words do not belong together. Now you can affirm mentally, left and right and all around life's harmonies are mine. I'm also getting all these messages. Do you like yoga? What is your yoga teacher? You do not have a real yoga teacher unless you have an Indian yoga teacher. And I'm like, what? Do you know who you're advertising to? I'm offended. All right, walk it forward, flatten the right foot. All right, stack up your blocks. You may need them here. Curl the back toes, lift that back knee. So we're going to go back and forth between the lunge and the standing form of split. So go ahead and straighten the front leg. Come to the fingertips if need be. Drop the head, look at your back foot. Make sure those toes are facing you. If they are, then more than likely your left hip and thigh are in the proper placement. But you can always try to dial it a little bit more. And now let's rock back and forth between the half lunge where we look out. And then the standing split where we're pushing down through the ball of that front foot so you can feel the activation of the minuscule smaller muscles that attach to the shin. Now the next time you take the standing form, feel free to spill down more if that's available. Remember, tiny quivers are okay. Violent shaking is a warning. Come out if you need to. Now lunge the right knee again. Slowly lift up your trunk. Once you have that erect over the hips, the arms can soar up. Find your drishti and then bring the hands and knee down. Doesn't have to go very far. And then inhale, drive it up. Exhale, coming down. We're doing 3. Bring the hands down, the back knee down. Good. Good. Actually, keep the back toes tucked. This is where we lifted and hovered the foot. So if you want to lift the foot, slightly point it back, Notice how it changes up the work in the back quads. Don't do it to the point where it drives you into cramps. Let it go if you need to. Good, now relax that foot down. Push onto the blocks so that you bring the knee back to the blanket. Send the blocks to the sides. Stand on your palms, curl the back toes so that you can launch into downward facing dog. Now creating this nice inverted shape, letting your head lower between the arms. So press your hands and feet so that your hips are soaring up, up and away. Few deep breaths. Next exhale, land the knees to the blanket. Shift your weight forward. You may have to slide back so that your pubic bone lands to the blanket now and come down to your chest. Good, lengthen your legs back behind you. Have your hands stacked under your shoulders, close by your chest, and then lower the forehead to the floor. Keep your elbows clipped in towards your side body, your toes stretching back, and then inhale, slowly lift the head, shoulders face. Exhale, lower back to the brow. Keep your legs active. Inhale, rising, baby cobra. Exhale, lower. Let your back fire up and strengthen. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. 2 more baby cobras. And maybe affirming on the last one when you rise. I rise joyfully to greet each new opportunity. And then exhale, go back down to the face. All right, bring the arms back beside your thighs, palms facing down, shoulders pressing away from your ears. And then inhale, lift both legs, both feet off the floor. And then exhale, set them back down. 4 more. Inhale, lift your legs and feet. Exhale to send them back down. Nice and slow, slow and controlled. Final one. Once you release, lift your hands up underneath your shoulders. Press up to table, crawl the knees back to the blanket. Separate your hands from in front of you to wrap around you and sink into child pose. Take the child pose version where your belly's kind of drawn in. Your spine is slightly rounded and your head is dripping past your knees. Shoulders dripping over the knees. Turning here, I relax down from all the outer involvements into my own and the haven of peace. Inhale, stretch your arms forward and out. Rock up to hands and knees. Curl the toes under. Come back to downward facing dog. Now from downward facing dog, I want you to slim up that space between the big toes. There's just a little bit of space. And then you're going to slowly fly your right leg up halfway. Now make sure that your hips feel even. And then point your right foot and maybe lift it slightly higher. And then lower the right foot down to the floor. So we're just splitting the legs here in down dog. Starting now with the left foot, lift it halfway up. Press into your palms, lean them back for your left heel. And then point that top foot, maybe scissor it a little higher, nothing extreme. And then slowly set the left foot down. Move the blanket out of the way with one of your hands and slowly step the feet forward and up to the top of the mat. Folding into your Uttanasana or your dangling position, depending on whether or not you want to fire up your legs. If you want to be yin or yang in your approach. Either way, definitely tip the weight forward towards your toes. Maybe emphasizing your exhalations. And then put a little bit more applied pressure down to the feet and allow the activity to run up through the legs and separate your hands, sweep them to the sides and allow them to bring you up, reaching the hands together to upward worship and then bringing the hands down to the heart. All right, we're gonna bring it back towards the floor. Inhale, bring it up. Exhale, keep the hands together and humbly bow. On your next inhale, step your right foot back. When you step that right foot back and you're lunging into that front knee, you're gonna slowly take the right knee down to the floor. This is where if you need that blanket again, you could obviously add it in. But you may want your block, okay, for this next one. We're gonna walk it back like we would do the half split, except the block is gonna come back beside this back foot so that we can sit on it. Now, if this doesn't work for this right side, I get it, because that's a lot for the ankle, that's a lot for the knee. What you're gonna do instead is you're gonna come around, you don't need that blanket anymore, and you can do more Janu Shirshasana. Okay, so don't feel like you have to force this position here. Okay. So either way, you're getting the hamstring work. Inhale, lift the arms up overhead. And then exhale, pour over the straight leg. So you can be in the half saddle or Janu Shirshasana. Consider how the legs can propel us forward into action. Also help us to run or flee. So there may have been some fractured relationships that you needed to part away from. Left and right, all around life's harmonies. Now, if by chance you're doing Janu Shirshasana, please don't feel like you have to maneuver through the next flow. You can just come up and then take the leg the other way, okay? If you're in this position though, you may wanna join me coming out the way we got in. Tucking the toes on the back foot, stepping through to Uttanasana. Stepping back with the left foot. Taking the left knee to the floor, walking it back like a half split to transition to the half saddle. And again, if you were in Janu Shirshasana, just swap, no problem. If you want to lengthen your back, you can lift your arms first, and then keep that elongation as you fold it down. So one of the conversations I had with someone over the weekend, they were saying that they haven't really experienced a tremendous amount of change the last couple of years until as of late. And it was interesting hearing her perspective of it because I've known her for a long time. And there's always been like a rocky relationship at home, but she's always really excelled at work. And she was telling me the other day, she said, you know, everything is changing and I don't do well with change. She said, but I can actually see there's some good in it too. She said, everything at home is going really well. There's been a shift. And then she said, but things aren't going well at work. I'm being picked on and kind of bullied at work. I'm not being appreciated at work, and I feel like I'm about to get fired. And she didn't shed a tear, but I was reminding her about yogic philosophy and all the changes that everybody's been having to make and all the changes she's witnessed with people. And I just kind of said, oh, I think it's your time to deal with all the change. And she actually left with a big smile on her face. So how well can we embrace the changes, unwanted or wanted, expected or unexpected? Can we see the silver lining even if it looks messy? Where are you experiencing a split yourself or in other areas? On your next inhale, we'll gently come up. Those of you, and Johnny Shop's going to just stay there. Those of us here, let's transition back out the way we got in. And back into a tabletop position. All right, now we can lower to the floor, join everyone else. We're going to take and kind of video the flow of the twist. So the first thing I want you to do is draw the knees in and lower down to your left side. And I want you to check in with your head here. Because like when my boyfriend comes to class, the way his body is shaped and the way his alignment is with his posture, he needs a blanket under his head. So I want you to check in with that when we're going through this flow, and you can always provide that support. But stack your hands, and as you inhale, your right arm's going to lift it towards the sky, and it's going to take itself all the way to the right. And if your right shoulder lands to the floor, it's okay to turn your head all the way. If it doesn't land to the floor, you don't want to turn your head all the way. And as you exhale, you're lifting the right arm up, and you're rolling back to your left side intently. And then this is our flow. So we're inhale, opening into the twist. And the exhale takes us out of the twist. Let your breath lead and guide the movement, entering as well as exiting. The next time you take the twist, pause and take 3 deep breaths. And now lift your knees and float your feet and roll all the way to your right side. And again, check in to see if you need that blanket under head. Stack your palms. And then inhale, extend your left arm skyward, sweep it all the way to your left, turning your head only if the shoulder touches down. And then exhale, coming out. You're just taking your time, inhaling into the twist, exhaling back to your side. Next time you open into the supine twist, be there. Turn your head to center, draw your knees to center. Now you're going to keep your feet hovering over your hips, but you're going to start to lean the knees to the left, about halfway to the floor. You're going to bring them back through center, and then you're going to lean them halfway over to the right. And so you're still getting a twist, but you're also now massaging the piriformis and the muscles in the buttocks. Controlling this action by contracting some of your core muscles so that you're defying gravity. Now bring the knees back through center and wrap your arms lovingly around them. Holding up Anasana. Wind release pose. And sink the feet back down to the floor. Roll over to your right side and go ahead and press up to sit. Since we have all these props, let's use them again with the restorative pose. So let's take the blocks, axis columns, hold up the bolster. Blanket can go under your head or it can cover your body to stay warm. You're going to lift your legs up. Your hands can really be anywhere. Since you're rolling down to your back, I'm going to gently overhead my knees. No longer have to be contemplative on what you're holding, experiencing, feeling split about anything. Now, this time it's to be used quiet time. The way to help quiet the mind to get the restless nature out of the body, which hopefully we've done. One way to stay focused is just to focus on one internal sense. So maybe you want to focus on the music, you still hear it. Perhaps you want to acknowledge the breath, entering and exiting the nose. Perhaps you want to picture something in your mind's eye. Give yourself some imagery, symbol to meditate towards. Maybe it's just reciting a mantra, a positive word or phrase. Pick one of those as your technique. deepen the flow of our breath so that our breath can bring us back to our body, our mind travel elsewhere. Back to your body, coming back to the studio, back to this space that you're residing in now. Beginning to awaken a little movement in the hands and feet. Drawing the knees back in towards the upper body. As you embrace yourself, know that you have the answers within. Been listening to this mantra, swaha. Swaha is about offering it up. Offer it up, but then also drop it in. And know you hold the key. You hold the answers to your life. Lower off to one side of your body. Come up to take a formal seat. Bringing your left hand over your heart and your right hand on top of that. Have faith in the answers that you receive. Have faith in yourself, the direction you take. You have a moment of clarity. Trust that moment of clarity, even if that doubting Thomas comes right back into your mind. Continue to use this practice as a way to unite yourself, to come back to a state of wholeness, to come back to a state of feeling connected. Everything out there wants us to stay disconnected. It's your responsibility. You showed up today. Hope you feel better, mind, body, soul. Join your hands together now to prayer. To the light and the honors and respectfully bows to the beautiful light that each of you hold. Namaste. So nice. Showing up, being present.